We are recording. Uh, Good evening, everybody, listeners. Ibrahim, good evening.
Good evening to you, Rob.
Yes, okay. Once again, Ibrahim Kazerooni and myself, Rob Prince, are engaging in a public dialogue. And it's this time it's about the U.S. and Israeli bombing attacks on Iran and the Iranian responses. Ibrahim Kazerooni has a joint PhD from the University of Denver's Korbel School of International Studies and the Iliff School of Theology, and is currently an imam working in the Detroit area. His family comes from Najib, Iraq. Myself, Rob Prince, I was at the same place. I'm a retired senior lecturer of international studies at the University of Denver's Korbel School of International Studies. Colorado has been my home for 56 years, and I'm married and I have two daughters and two grandsons. Okay. Ibrahim, we've gotten so many contradictory takes on what happened last month when both Israel and the United States bombed Iran and when Iran responded. So can you clarify, given now that we're a month later and some of the dust has settled, what happened?
Well, good evening to you, Rob, and good evening to our viewers and listeners. Now, as you said, after they say hindsight is 2020,
Right.
now we have practically most of the information available. If you listen to the Western media, they spin this in a particular manner, which is far from the reality. It could have been really a fundamental step to change the Middle East. What Condoleezza Rice said in 2006, that this is the birth of, or the plain birth of the new Middle East. What they wanted was the new Middle East.
Right.
It appears that United States and Israelis were cooking and putting everything in place right from the beginning, even before this negotiation from in one place or the other started, whether it was in Oman, Italy, or anywhere else. The sleeper cells were brought in probably 6 or 7 months before what happened. And these people came from Daesh side, from Afghanistan, from the Kurdish side, from the Azerbaijan side, the Turkey side. And they were financed and supported. And that particular night when they attacked Iran, first the United States and then the Israelis, although they what we call the intent, well, at least claimed the goal was nuclear issue, but everything that was done was regime change. The MK Munafiqin Khalq and other people were brought in, and everybody was celebrating here that this existential knockout that they are going to deliver to the Iranian regime, where they literally destroy the upper echelons of military, scientific, religious, and everybody else. And they are going to destroy everything. And they were hoping that by removing the upper echelon of the Iranian system, chaos would be created. Remember, we talked about this in the past, the shock doctrine.
Right.
Yeah, this is. They were hoping for this to be created, and the Iranians, or at least the element of it, which they hoped that would rise and topple the system, topple the regime, and everything else. That was the intent. What they put into the news media was that this is something to do with knocking out the nuclear side.
Right.
Fortunately for the Iranians, unfortunately for the Americans and the Israelis, Iranians, according to news that came out, that Hezbollah using an old listening device, not the new one. This was some kind of outside the digital system got hold of some information and passed this information to the Iranians. Iranians managed to remove all the enriched uraniums, as well as the Ayatollah Khamenei and a number of others from possible sites that they were going to be attacked. And the consequence was not that the Iranian regime survived. Because of Iranian nationalism, even those in Iran who technically they were not in cahoot or at least supporting the regime, because of their nationalistic feeling, they came around and supported the regime. So the consequence for the regime was they got much stronger support from the Iranian population, and they did not. The Israelis and the Americans were not able to achieve what they wanted. Iran absorbed the attack and within 8 hours responded. You want to add something, Rob?
Yeah, a couple of points to develop. The way that the whole thing was packaged in the American media was this in the last period, but weeks, month, or whatever, that Iran was approaching enrichment, such an enrichment level that it could make nuclear weapons, i.e., that we had to do it now because the Iranians have been moving. So the first point we want to make is it's quite interesting because this goes against the national intelligence estimate of, 15, 16 U.S. intelligence agencies in the United States that said that no such thing is happening. And Trump was taking his advice that this threat was, quote, imminent from somewhere else. But one of the things that came out in the...
Can I interject here, Rob? By the way, this idea that Iran is very close, a week, 2 hours, 5 days, or so on, we've been hearing about it for the past 25 years.
Longer.
Or possibly longer.
Right.
Netanyahu has been saying it. Other people have been saying it. Every time there is a General Assembly, Netanyahu or somebody else comes with a map. Look how close the Iranians are to the enrichment. And so this is not new. No. The idea that it's imminent. They've been talking about this. And the lady who was responsible, I forgot her name, for the national security, even she said that there is no such thing.
Right.
But Trump wasn't having it and wanted to go in.
All right. So that whole scenario, that whole narrative that this was an immediate response to that imminent threat. The first thing to start coming out was that this operation, which was very sophisticated from a technical point of view, if you like, took at least a year and probably longer to prepare. All right. So that the actual attack itself, it was planned already during the Biden administration, and possibly before. It has many elements. It had many elements to it. It had, the assassinations of the nuclear scientists, the assassinations of the military leaders, the attempt to assassinate Khamenei, the transportation of drone parts from outside to inside Iran. So this was a very, very sophisticated technical operation. And in that sense, once again, we should never underestimate the United States and Israel and they're both in their planning and their abilities. So it's at least a year. But frankly, if we look more carefully, what we'll see is that there have been plans to overthrow the Iranian government. That if the earliest ones that I find are in the early 1990s, but my hunch is that there are plans even before that. All right. Frankly, going back to Carter's attempt to, quote, free the hostages in 1979. But I think it was 2008, one of the institutes here in the United States that has a great deal of influence, the Brookings Institute, in coordination with another one called the Sabin, SABAN Foundation. And the Sabin Foundation is, well known as a pro-Israeli, pro-Zionist funded and oriented foundation. So these two, so the Brookings Foundation paper was called, what's it called? Pathways to Persia, I believe. Yeah. And if you read that, and here I must give credit to the social media commentator Brian Berletic. Keeps repeating. He repeated it so long I had to go find it and read it. But one of the things that Berletic was talking about was that paper, everything that the United States has done since, including this bombing, you'll find in that paper, i.e., that we're talking about a long-term plan, very long in the making, and in the execution, and basically what the United States and Israel were looking for was a pretext. And this leads us into the shock doctrine, all right? Because what is the idea of the shock doctrine? The shock doctrine is the modern version of the Nazi blitzkrieg, okay? But in today's world, what it is, it combines economic sanctions, the destabilization, domestic destabilization, military aspect, the bombing or whatever. And the goal is to create such a shock that the regime will collapse, as happened in Syria and Libya, more or less. And this is the thing that both Israel and the United States thought, oh, this is going to be a piece of cake. Look at the way that Syria fell. And so this was their plan. Now, once again, Ibrahim, in our discussions, one of the things that comes up again and again and again, they have no plan B.
You see that, Rob, unfortunately for the Americans, because it comes out of such arrogance, that there is, when they begin to strategize and plan, the idea that what if plan A doesn't work, because there are so many variables, and what if one of the variables somehow is removed from the whole project, then what will happen? What they did not anticipate exactly was this. Yes, they were hoping they used the shock doctrine, which was overwhelming. The same thing happened in 2000. I'm sure you remember those days. You and I, we were talking about Iraq's invasion in 2002, 2003. That was happened. What the Americans did in Baghdad, the overwhelming use of military power. You literally undermine all the infrastructure. You create pulverize it, and you create such a chaos. By the time people, they normally the guy who is at least credited for this was Friedman, the economist in Chicago University. By the time people get together and start thinking, you need about 6 to 9 months. Within 9 months, you can establish and you can implement your plan and set everything for a change in the system. So what they were looking for is similar kind of things.
Yes.
They were so sure of their plan A's victory and success that they never thought about what if Iranians somehow managed to circumvent this, and the whole situation, the table is turned, and we saw the result. Go ahead.
Okay, well, the other thing is looking at, which you mentioned earlier, but let's go into it a little bit more, both the stated and the real goals here. All right. So, forever kind of like a Buddhist hymn, we have to get the nuclear program. We have to get the nuclear program. We have to get the nuclear program, blah, 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 blah. And yet, when we look at what happened here, the target was at best symbolically the nuclear program, and the target was overthrowing the regime. So that's what I see. I see the stated goal, and that failed, of course, and the real goal failed as well. And in terms of the nuclear program, to talk about it just for a bit, because that's what we get bombarded with here in the United States. And here, and in the end, I know that, for some of the listeners, it might sound a little bit off, but it's just a red herring, and it's always been that. It's not about the nuclear program. Uh, um, but even there, from what we can tell, well, first of all, we at this point, even a month later, we still don't concretely know the extent of the damage to the nuclear plants. But all the suggestions are that Iran, not only is Iran's nuclear program remain intact, but because of this bombing, any attempt to kind of coordinate and control Iran's nuclear program, it looks like it's going out the window. And here, there are a number of factors, but one of the key factors was the role of the International Atomic Energy Agency's head, who's basically doing what? And this is public information, sharing information from the inspections in Iran that the IAEA did and passing that over to the United States, to the CIA, and then to the Israelis. And it was because if you wonder, well, how is it that the Israelis knew their intelligence, who was a nuclear scientist and where they lived? They got that information from the IAEA.
Yeah, I mean, this is, first of all, now it has become clear the role of the IAEA. But if remember, before the attack, Iran was able to acquire a huge amount of documents, Israeli secret documents.
Right. We don't hear about that here.
Which they analyzed it. Mm-hmm. And it transpired. I actually read few of these pages that they had translated to Arabic and Farsi from Hebrew, and it transpired the role of the IAEA, particularly the leadership, the IAEA leader Gharousi, whatever his name is, that he used to go with a number of
Grassi is his
name.
Yes,
and with the number of inspectors, to under the pretext that they want to check, they were taking pictures. They were taking pictures of exactly the plans and everything else, and not passing them directly to the Israelis. So the Israelis knew through IAEA. This is why now the Iranian government has said under no circumstance they would allow this individual back into Iran, and all of the inspectors have been told to pack up and go. They have left. All the cameras have been removed. So technically, at the moment, IAEA has no information about what's going on in the Iranian nuclear facility. That's number one. And number two, the Majlis, or the parliament, passed a unanimous bill that going back to IAEA requires the government to come back to the parliament for permission, or for something to be permission to be granted. And otherwise, Iran is not going to go back to the IAEA. So now we are beginning to see a step towards exit strategy by Iran from IAEA, and going towards the North Korean, the Pakistani, as well as the Indian and few other countries' path of enrichment.
Two points building on what you just said. The first is not only did the stated plan to destroy Iran's nuclear program fail, but what this has done is triggered and stimulated a regional nuclear arms race, and not just for nuclear energy, but more and more likely for nuclear weapons. And you mentioned, if you like, the North Korean option. And what is the North Korean option? It's very simple. North Korea has not been attacked because it has nuclear weapons. So that it's just in terms of anybody who is talking.
By the way, Rob, I listened to a number of parliamentarians in Iran underscoring the point that you raised. North Korea was not attacked and is not going to be attacked because North Korea has nuclear weapon. If we want to protect ourselves, we need to change the strategy. And now they are putting huge amount of pressure on Ayatollah Khamenei to somehow rescind his views. But they
Right.
said that they constantly said that look at North Korea, look at Pakistan, look at India. They are not being attacked no matter what they do because of the nuclear powers that they have. And another point with what you just raised, before even attack on Iran a year and a half ago, American provided exactly what they provided to the Shah of Iran during the 1960s, the
Oh,
full program to the Saudis,
all right.
and also to the Dubai and Qatar Emirate, that we would provide you with the full project. No, just for enrichment for peaceful purposes. You can take that and go. So the region is moving towards nuclear armament
Yeah,
because
nuclear
that's the
arms.
only way they can protect themselves.
Yes, and here you can, we use the expression the elephant in the room, but here it's really the Tyrannosaurus Rex in the room, if you like. And here, all this concentration in the U.S. media on will Iran have nuclear weapons? Will it not? Blah blah blah. Israel, right, 40 years ago, 40 years ago, when this nuclear technician Vanunu Mordecai,
Yes, Mordechai Benoni.
released secret documents about the Israeli nuclear weapons program to the Guardian newspaper.
I was in London at the time.
You were in London.
Yeah, and I read the story.
Yeah.
The thickest Guardian ever newspaper published in the history of Guardian was that particular episode.
So that is 40 years ago. 40 years ago, Israel has 200 nuclear weapons if Vanunu's documents are real. The figure, I don't know where the figure is coming from, but in mainstream media publications, the few that have mentioned, the Economist mentioned this, they talk about 400 Israeli nuclear weapons. So here, the world's attention has, through the media and Trump and Biden, whatever, has been fixated on a non-existent nuclear weapons program in Iran, and nobody is saying anything about Israel's enormous nuclear arsenal. And so, when I look at this, it's really chilling. There's a number of us here in the United States, and here in Colorado is a very strong movement for nuclear disarmament. And there was the IMF treaty with the Soviets at that time. So there was some progress, some reduction. Now what we're seeing is a full-scale nuclear armed weapons buildup, and not just in the Middle East, because if countries like Brazil, the BRIC countries, Indonesia, and others are seeing, my gosh, Israel has nukes, and as you mentioned, Pakistan and India, and Iran might have them, and Saudi Arabia has been given the whole plan from the United States. Why shouldn't Argentina and Brazil? It's terrible. So that, and add to that, and this is something else that is hardly ever mentioned from what I can tell, but the main focus of the U.S. military buildup over the next 10 and 20 years is the retooling and the growth of nuclear weapons. We're talking about a $2-3 trillion program, I believe, over the next 10 years. So look at what this policy has done in the region, okay, and more globally. It's terrible. So I think the first point we can say is, despite Trump he's repeated, we've obliterated the Iranian. He likes the word obliterate. It's a pretty big word for him to use. But there's no evidence of that whatsoever.
Not only, Rob, there is no evidence. Iranian response to the whole thing within 8 hours shook the foundation of the Israelis and the Americans. They were not expecting such a severe response from the Iranian despite many layers of what we call protection that the Americans, the British, the French, as well as the Jordanians and others have provided, not to mention the Israelis themselves, but yet Iranian missiles were able to penetrate and bomb severely economic centers, military centers, air force bases, and etc., etc. The fact that Netanyahu was the one who waved the white flag because of the damage that was done to the Israeli infrastructure that they did not expect. So Iran responded and responded severely, not only to the Israelis, they responded to the American bases as well, in Qatar as well as in northern Iraq. And once these two bases were bombed, I read an interview of one of the Iranian politicians that he said that there were 9 bases that they were planning to bomb in the region, not 2 or 3. And once these 2, the major ones, were bombed, the Americans somehow, through their negotiators and Swiss, approached the Iranians to cool it down. And we are prepared to go back to the negotiation. But it is too late. Iran has lost. Iran never had any confidence with the American anyway. And now it has become much clearer that while they were talking about negotiation, they were actually cooking regime change.
Right. And all right, then let's come back to the second point in terms of the goal. Regime change failed. All right. So we said it failed. The consequences of this plan failing are profound. Not only did it fail, it backfired. It backfired in Iran. You already mentioned, Ibrahim, how the whole country has stood behind the leadership. Nationalism, the strength of Iranian nationalism has grown that much stronger, and the leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, he is viewed. You wouldn't know this here in the United States from the media. He's viewed as a hero. He's viewed as a hero, not just in the Middle East, and certainly not only among Sunni Shiite Muslims, but everybody. Okay, but in the global South, Iran stood up to the United States, and it's still standing, shaken maybe a little bit, but standing. I.e., the failure of the plan that happened in Syria and Libya, Iraq, whatever. So that's one consequence. The situation of Iran is stronger. The second consequence that I see is this is brought even closer the cooperation between China, Russia, and Iran. Russia and China, they have reasons that are both principled reasons. Okay, it's not right to overthrow other governments, but also their own different reasons. And what I see happening now is that these 3 countries, which together pretty much, or the 3 among them, form the leadership of the BRICS country, that we're going to see much closer cooperation, and not just economically, but also strategically, militarily. All that is coming together. And
we can see that, Rob, immediately. If you remember, we go back to the Pakistan-Indian kind of ding dong that happened for 3 days or 4 days, and the outcome of that war was the superiority of some of the Chinese plane vis-a-vis Rafale, the French, and some others. Iran immediately went back to China and asked for a list of military hardware, including planes, missiles, and everything else, radars. Russia came in and provided support. So they are coming in, and Iran is becoming not only a regional power, that they were trying to remove Iran from this dynamic. A regional power, as you said, it's creating an image for the Iranians in globally, particularly what we call the post-colonial world.
Right.
That they were looking And we constantly hear that. Show us an old man of 87, 80 years, 88 years of age stands up to America and the Israelis and wins.
Yes, yes. No, the period that is ending, as I see it, what is basically World War II ends, and over the next 10, 15 years, what we could say is that formal colonialism had its day. But that was replaced by this new colonialism, neo-colonialism, what I call sneaky colonialism, where countries, they have their own leadership, but their economies, their military, the really key decisions in the country are controlled by
Rob, your friend Mamdani calls it backdoor. Yeah,
right.
backdoor colonialism.
Backdoor colonialism. Yeah. Right. This is his son who's challenging the democratic leadership.
Yes.
State. But okay, so these two goals, either the stated goal or the real goal, what we can say is they failed. All right.
Yes.
Okay. I think we've covered that as well as we need to at the moment. But okay, Ibrahim, kind of finishing up here, do we have any thoughts about where things are going? I mean, all right, the U.S. and Israel tried regime change in Iran. It failed. What now? What now for U.S.-Iranian relations? What now for Israel and Iran? And what now for the region? I realize, we're not going to be able to predict that much. But if there's some general themes that you see emerging a month after this series of incidents, I'd like to hear about it.
Well, let's start with the Israelis. Israelis put all their effort into this attack, and it failed. So Israelis are not in a position to start something new unless with the support of United States. That's number one. United States are now trying to create some kind of negotiated settlement, and somehow now that the Iranians say no INA or anything else, I don't think under the current scenario there is a possibility of immediate negotiation with the United States. United States has to literally go on so to speak, on its knees and try to bring back Iran into some kind of negotiation after they have failed to deliver the punch that they were looking for. In a short to medium term, Iran is moving towards strengthening its position. No giving in to the enrichment. Certainly, the enrichment continues, and the Iranian government has already said that all the centrifugal forces or the enrichment, that they were old-fashioned, to be replaced with the up-to-date centrifuge, which means more enrichment and probably higher than 60% enrichment. At this stage, Iran has, or at least Ayatollah Khamenei has never indicated that there is a revised plan vis-a-vis the issue of nuclear weapon, but we don't know. If something happens drastic or another attack, there is a possibility. But Iran finds itself in much better position. It absorbed the attack. Its economy didn't collapse. Its leadership didn't collapse. People got around the leadership and supported the leadership. And generally speaking, not only, as you said, not only inside Iran, outside Iran, Ayatollah Khamenei and the Iranian model has become the exemplary model and something that people are proud of. So at this stage, I don't see anything that United States or the Israelis can do to change that dynamic. But you never know. If Trump starts with some of those stupid ideas again, who knows?
All right. Well, building or finishing our program based on what you just said, my take is what's somewhat similar, but I look at it in a slightly different way, and that is the strategic plan of the United States and Israel to overthrow the Iranian government continues. But they kind of ran into a brick wall, and now they're going to have to reconsider how can we use other means. The main conclusion that I get from this this episode is that overthrowing the Iranian government by military means has failed. And they're going to, they'll look for some, the usual sanctions, using the Mujahideen al-Khalq and I guess the Azaris, been very active, things like that. But they don't have a plan, and they're going to continue. They're going to continue with this for their own geostrategic reasons to try to stop the BRICS and to continue to create problems for Russia and China. So it's going to be a long war, and this is just one episode. Ibrahim, any final remarks from you?
Yeah, I mean, I just the Trump's ideas about Ukraine and the turnaround or U-turn about Ukraine. I think the more they try to put pressure on the Russians vis-a-vis Ukraine, the closer the Russians would go to the Iranians, and because as an allied and the center of force, balancing force in the region. So we have to wait and see. I think none of us have the crystal ball, but under the circumstance, what we have is that all the plans that they have failed. Iran is coming out of it stronger. Whether United States is going to go for a round 2 of attack, we don't know. If it happens, that certainly puts the entire region close to to literally an explosion.
Yes. Okay. Well, let's let's hope and work for to the best of our ability that doesn't happen. Dear friends, we hope you enjoyed this program. We'll be doing more in the future, and we'll let you know. Ibrahim, good night. You have a good evening.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes. Thank you.